to say that I have a Facebook marketplace problem, I think I'm not alone, because I think a lot of people, right? I really honestly should probably block any like 90s Honda, Mazda. I mean, any kind of Japanese or even American muscle. I don't hate on those cars either. But just like I should set up some kind of DNS rule or content filter because, man, do I get an itch when I see something that I'm like, whew, I want to go buy that. My wife would kill me.
Green flag. Green flag.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
Just visit DeechWorks.com and use Apex 10 at checkout to save on fueling your passion. The world's evolving. The journey into competitive driving is evolving too. We've sort of covered this topic, maybe not, but it's always good to get a fresh perspective. Joining me, he's trying to be cost effective from what I can read, but he has a K24 S2000. So Jaime, he's not as cost effective as you. He's taking some steps to get into, competitive driving, right? And I know I agree with some of his opinions and maybe some I don't. Somehow a time trial Miata driver suggested we talk, which I don't get. So that's proof the world's going crazy. Dan from Open Source Motorsports, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Con. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. I can't believe somebody would recommend you to come on this podcast, but whatever, we'll take it. It's just one of those things. So you brought this topic to me. But before we go down into the topic, let's figure out, where did this motorsports passion come from and what sent you down this path?
Great question. It really started. My old man was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. He's laid to rest in Arlington with his other family, if you get my point. And if you've ever had the opportunity to drive in a car, or ride in a car rather, with a fighter pilot, it's almost like they're trying to do the same thing that they did in the skies on the ground. At least with my dad, it was. Photos of him in Oklahoma, working on hot rods, building, drag cars, road course cars, was really in his DNA. And growing up, he kind of showed me some of these simple methods and means to diagnose cars. I had a 1991 Z28. I was a very fortunate kid to have that as my first vehicle, or actually really like my second vehicle. But it had a lifter, and we were diagnosing it. And I remember, if you can imagine your classic movie where there's the military dad and the kid who's trying to please his dad, a very, yes, sir, no, sir kind of deal. He said, go get me a dowel rod, go get me a broom from the kitchen. And this is more on the diagnosis of like learning mechanics through him. And he put the dowel rod, right? He took the broom apart where the brush end is on the side, and we had this wooden shaft to place on the motor. So the motor's on, it's a V8, tune port injected V8. I think it was a 302, I think, a 305, I forget. It's been a while. And he was placing the rod onto the engine cylinder banks like a stethoscope on a doctor on your chest, right? And I was absolutely like, as a kid, super confused. What's my dad doing? Kind of piecing this together. And as I saw him kind of placing this on the engine, and he said, he motioned me to come over. He goes, it's the cylinder. And he was like, you hear it? And he placed, the end of the rod to the ear and was like, do you hear the lifter? I was like, yeah, I do. And then he put it on a different bank where I couldn't hear it. And so that was kind of the initial spark of learning mechanics of cars and kind of having that mechanical empathy that this machine's not running right. You can hear it, right? The power wasn't all the way there. You can also feel it in the pedal. So fast forward, I had an opportunity as a kid to sit in Hendrick Honda off Route 1 in Northern Virginia. My dad and I frequented dealerships quite often. We would kind of mess around with car salespeople. It's kind of rude, but it was fun, right? We would talk them down to achievable levels of, hey, maybe we can go talk this guy down on a Viper. I'm like, there's no way. And my dad would go in there and talk smack a little bit and not buy anything, right? But he would come out of there with like, yeah, we talked this guy down, I don't know. I was a kid at the time, a couple grand on a Viper. And it was like, whoa. So I learned a lot about car negotiation tactics there. And the reason why I bring this up, Hendrick Honda, is they had that purple Honda Civic Si, right? That we all know. I think it's the Neutron Blue Pearl.
Electron Blue Pearl.
You got it. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Well, I remember sitting in one, and I was drooling. And this is right around the time when the S2000 was on the showroom floor. And I remember asking, my dad, hey, can I go sit in it? And thus became like the reason why I have an S2000 days. That was the one car that throughout my childhood I sat in and I was like, I really, really want to drive this. With all these salespeople looking at me with like, guarded, bated breath to come over and tell me to get out of the car before I ruin it or something like that. And it kind of matured away from that Honda, that moment. I told you about the Z28, and I think my first real love of motorsport and autocross was with a Subaru WRX. I had a 2002 Bug-Eye. I was really active on the Naziok forums, really kind of cut my teeth there, to be blunt. Helping a bunch of WRX owners, STI owners, doing down pipes, up pipes, header backs, cat backs. We we replaced a gas tank because we thought somebody put sugar in it, and then we figured out, hey, you didn't have to worry about that back then. But we did everything on Subarus. I mean, we did turbo swaps, tunes, you name it, we did it. And I learned quite a lot about the boxer motor on Subarus. And then, as luck would have it, I ended up getting a 350Z. And had the opportunity to go to the BIR, where I met Eric Wong. And he was my instructor. And I fell in love with, road racing at BIR with Eric as my instructor, and pushing the car to the limit and then doing a ride along. I think he had an E36 at the time. He wasn't, E46s, I don't think even existed back then. This is around 2006. And I remember going on a ride in his E36 and him telling me on the back straight, VIR full, hold on, because that turn, I think 13, you come up, pretty hot and heavy in his car. It was so light, his E36, he could really engage the brakes really, really late. And I just remember being hung out to dry in that, I think it was a 6-point or 5-point harness. Either way, I mean, I just remember just being like, good God, this thing stops on a dime. And then went through a personal matter where I had to, go through a divorce. It is what it is. And I had to say, I had to put it on pause, my desires of motorsport, due to that real life activity. And, I always thought I was going to come back to VIR just because it's VIR, right? Not that Summit's not awesome or Shenandoah or any of the other racetracks, but VIR to me had that kind of once bitten, not even twice as shy, like more of like, I want to go back again. And I think for a lot of Virginians and other motorsport enthusiasts, you go to VIR and it kind of gets you, right? It has that special feeling about it.
We are spoiled.
We are. And so, I made this decision, talking to my wife and sharing with her my desire to get back into motorsport. not just as, a Subaru person, working on down pipes, up pipes, a little bit of autocross. I never tracked my Subaru. And I made it a clear kind of decision. I was like, I really want to go back. I want to get involved with NASA. I want to walk through, the maturation levels of DE1, 2, and learn and get into, maybe time trials or Honda Challenge. I haven't really made that decision yet. And, as we go through looking at the car and getting it track prepared, at least for me, I was really serious about taking my time and really from a financial paradigm, not getting into any debt. And a lot of people would be like, well, why? It's because I learned a lot from that divorce that, debt was really, it can be crushing and delay your life's activities. And so I bought this S2000 03 S2000 AP1 for those that may or may not know. And I remember I got it for like 11 grand. And this is before the whole like stock market,
Right.
Uptick of S2000s. And so, the guy drove up in a parking lot in Chantilly. I think his father was driving his M3, like brand new M3, probably not the car he should drive to sell a different vehicle, because I haggled the heck out of that thing, because I was like, this guy's not hurting. Any dollar I can save is just a dollar I can put into getting this car ready. So I enjoyed the S2000 for a couple years in natural trim. Getting up to 9,000 RPM was just a riot, because I used to ride motorcycles, R6s, Yamaha,
16,000 RPMs.
Yeah, man. I miss my motorcycle days. I really miss that R6. If I'm being honest, I had a CBR 600 R, which it was unique in its own way, but not as flickable as the R6
And the
was.
seat is terrible.
Seat was garbage. The seat was terrible. Yeah, riding on 95. What is that from? Quantico North, right by Woodbridge and Potomac Mills. Those pieces of concrete that ka-chunk, ka-chunk, and just the seat, kicking you right in the butt is not fun. But man, that bike was a blast, and just super reliable, just a smooth ride. I even hear now that they're like being sought after, the older R6s, because they're just
expensive.
Just a great motorcycle.
Yeah, I'll derail this right now because I'm in the motorcycle shopping mood, and I have 2 old R6s downstairs. My wife has a F4i downstairs, and
nice.
I wanted to go from the R6 to the RR, and I was like, I cannot sit on this brick that they put in for a seat. So
it's pretty bad. I did some work, very minor work on my motorcycles. I didn't really do any work on the R6, but I put a Two Brothers can on the double R, and that thing would just howl down 66. I mean, it sounded awesome. I mean, I even had friends of mine commuting into work, and they would see me rip by and just be like, good grief, that thing sounds like a terror. And it was very, very quick, but that was the one that had the built-in steering dampener, and I felt like that always kind of impeded the agility, where like the R6, you could just think and the bike would just lean into a corner. I mean, it was very telepathic, and kudos to Yamaha. I mean, that chassis, I think it was a Delta Box 3 frame, if my memory serves, and that thing was just awesome. Just a fantastic bike. And I knew, like, part of me was like, do I go into motorcycle racing?
Not if you enjoy your clavicles staying stock.
Yeah. Oddly enough, since we're talking about it, there was a gentleman in my best friend in high school growing up. He had, I want to say it was an R6 in his garage. And we always kind of saw him walking around with like a little bit of a hitch in his step. Never understood why the bike didn't move. And then we got to know him. I think he was a chef for his job. his wife would come out and say hi to us, and me and my best friend at the time would throw a little crossball out front, and he would come out and just kind of shoot the bull with us just to see what's going on. And we started to get to talking to him, and he raced motorcycles. He had an accident, um, and that kind of really set a path forward for me where I was like, as much as I love riding, and I get that's probably the safest place to do is at a track. I kind of want a cage, and I want a 6-point harness. I want a Hans device. I want all those things to kind of reduce the risk down to it's a tolerable level I can. But yeah, man, R6s, gosh. So anyways, like fast forwarding and getting the car ready, started watching Grid Life, really kind of rooting for these grassroots motorsports guys in that world, laying it out there, becoming the road warrior. And I remember seeing ASM, Andy Smedegaard Motorsports, and what he was doing with these S2000s. And I had been kind of stalking s2ki.com, right? The S2000 forums. And the general gist I got was, hey, you can keep your F motor, but you're going to have to do this, 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 this. And you start to tally up all the things you got to do to keep that F series motor rolling. And it gets really expensive really fast. And I made a decision. I thought long and hard on it while I was saving up the money to execute. And I was like, I think I might reach out to Andy and talk about, what they can do about a GLTC package on my S2000. And lo and behold, saved up the money, drove it all the way out to Wisconsin. I think it was an 18-hour trip. Both my son and I did it in one fell swoop. Lots of Celsius. Probably wouldn't do that again. It was bad. I had like heartburn really bad near the end miles of it. We dropped it off, drove back, and like I want to say it was really fast. Like ASM turned the car around within like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. It was not a long time period. So much so to the point where like my schedule wasn't ready to go pick it up. Like I'd had to carve time out. And so talking to Andy about the car being ready to go, he said, hey, we're going to CMP, Carolina Motorsports Park. If you want, for a small fee, I got room on my super big trailer your car down, and instead of driving all the way out to Wisconsin, come down to Carolina and pick it up. And I thought, 18 hours, doing that crawl again, 2 times, right? There and back, and then Carolina. Come on, yeah, I'll do that. And so grabbed my son, rented a truck, U-Haul trailer, and trailered the car home. And what amazed me was just matter of fact, right? Like, car's ready to go. Get in there. The keys are sitting on the dash. It was just sitting there like it had been waiting for me the whole time. It was kind of crazy.
So did you get a trainer clone with the arrow and everything, or?
No. Okay. It was just, I think it was a stage. Gosh, my memory serves. I have the paperwork. It was basically a K swap, AEM ECU, Infinity 506, some ASM components like a fluid dampener to deal with the vibrations, some custom things that they do to try and keep the vibrations down, with a gradle that sits underneath the engine. I even sourced an AP2 transmission and an AP2 rear diff with the half shafts on the side, right? So everything from the power plant is, K and then AP2 out towards the end of the car. I mean, everything's AP2. Had Andy seam weld the front upper control arm, so it's good to go. And no arrow. And I think now, after going through HPDE and I have a wonderful instructor when I came back to VIR, because that was kind of the reunion of things, right? I started this journey at VIR with that 350Z, and then I knew, while Summit is so close to where I live today, I really wanted to come back and like reignite that same passion at VIR, before, tackling Summit or Shenandoah or NJMP or whatever, right? I knew I wanted to go back to VIR. And my instructor, James, I won't say his last name, but I think he's a 2 or 3-time Integra Type R NASA champion. He said, "I'm so happy that you didn't put aero in your car." And I said, "What do you mean by that? Can you expand on it?" And he said, "So many people go put aero on their car, and then they don't realize what it's like to drive without it, and then understanding the nuance and difference of how you can attack certain corners with the aero versus not." And I said, "So is there a TTL, right? Like a timetable for me to put aero on?" He goes, "I want you to work through DE 1, 2, 3, and then slowly but surely, look at maybe doing a front aero first or maybe a wing." And I talked to a couple Honda Challenge guys, a couple S2000s at Summit this last weekend too. And they all seem to lean towards doing a bigger wing out back to clean up the air, so you can really kind of get that rear end planted in some of those sweeping turns, especially like T3 at Summit, uphill S's at VIR. I mean, that way you can just be near flat, or if not all the way through flat. I haven't done it yet, but we'll see what next year provides us, or maybe the winter break.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always the size of the wing that counts. I run a 55-inch, so what Johnny at 9 Lives calls the little wing, and my car's pretty decent in the fast stuff. So, but
I'll definitely keep that in mind. I couldn't even tell you if it's a 9 Lives or Zebulon, or I haven't really thought about what vendor I'd go with. But it kind of opens the doorway to kind of the genesis of my side hustle, which is my company, Open Source Motorsports. When I was talking to Andy and doing my own homework about telemetry and looking at other devices in the market, I mean, the eye-watering prices. I mean, I think I even mentioned this in the paddock at Summit. I have a Garmin smartwatch. I love it. It's great. Great battery life. Have massive amount of engineering respect for the folks that made the Phoenix watch, and Garmin as a whole. They make all kinds of great products. But when you look at the Garmin Catalyst, you quickly go like, "Whoa, that's $1,000." And knowing what I know about computers, I mean, I'm a 3-decade IT technologist for my day job. And when I look at $1,000 on a tablet, let's just call it what a Catalyst is. It's a very nice tablet, don't get me wrong, super performant, great software. But for $1,000, I was like, that's so many tires, that's so many sets of brakes, or so many track visits, or whatever kind of analog you want to provide. And I just thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. And so I started reaching out to other vendors and finding that there was a select few that really had devices that were in a really nice price point that still didn't, skimp out on performance.
So I'll defend the Catalyst as a Catalyst user. Okay. So first off, if you're paying $1,000 for it, I haven't looked at the prices since, Terraforce and all that, but
sure.
If you're patient, and this is we've done cost-effective podcasts in the past. If you're patient, they go on sale, $700-800 somewhere in there. Sure. So that's what I recommend. It will fill several itches. Like, if you're lazy, 1, it's easy to use. 2, if you don't have the infrastructure or the process built in yet to flex big data in an infrastructure setting, It's helpful there. And then when you race, there's a requirement to have a camera. Okay. And I probably on this desk. Yeah. There's 3 GoPros on my desk that I will never, ever use ever again because they're horribly unreliable. And the Garmin
Right.
and the camera, for the most part, once you install it correctly, it's stupid reliable. You turn it on, you press start, you say, record or whatever the option is. The GPS tells you what area of the world you're in and what track you're at. We were at Summit last weekend. It goes, do you want Shenandoah? Do you want Jefferson? Do you want this? Do you want Maine? Summit, Maine. Okay. And then I just press start and it says at 25 miles an hour, I'm going to start recording. It's very simple. There's no sync it to this. There's no, it's very, very intuitive to use. Most people don't realize there are other tabs. It's a spreadsheet flipped upside down, and they'll look at things and be like, it gives me my speed. And I'm like, yes. And it gives you G's, and it gives you this, and it gives you brake markers. It tells you like where your marker was, right? There's 4 tabs across it, and they only use one tab. They only use the speed tab, which for the basics is helpful. And then you can advance in. That all being said, and maybe I should have talked to you first, but I'm already committed to purchasing an aim dash and a Smarty Cam. And fortunately, my car through the CAN bus has almost everything I need. I don't actually need to buy any accessories right now, unless I want to start doing shocks and stuff, or the feed from the CAN bus isn't exactly what I want, because it says engine temperature, which we're thinking means coolant temperature, but we don't know how it's going to come out. So I may have to do that, but I think that's the only one. It gives me steering. Did you know the 8th Gen Civic has a brake pressure sensor in it already? I didn't know that.
Huh, that's cool.
So all of that will be recorded. So, yeah. And nice. I can tell you, $800 is a bargain considering what I'm purchasing, which is basically the same thing, except for I get to eliminate gauges and I get to see more stuff. And then I'll have throttle overlay, pedal, and throttle body overlay and things like that. So a lot more stuff, but the price is easily triple. So yeah.
And that's where, as I was saving this money, getting the car ready, I think I might have mentioned in Summit, I had spine surgery. Did I mention that?
You didn't.
I'm trying to remember if I did. No. So, I mean, for your listeners, we're on video and I'm showing Con, I think it's on this side. You can see like a little bit of a scar on my neck, just a little bit. So this being a motorsport podcast, I can tell the story righteously because, other avenues you'd be like, what? But I think you'll get it. So when we were driving, my son and I, the S2000 up to ASM, there was this wicked tranche of traffic that we hit, where it was one of those situations like turn off the car, like get out, stretch your legs. You're not going anywhere. And it's really, really bad gridlock. I mean, to the point where, people were shutting the cars off. It had just approached dusk and then the sun had set. So darkness was setting in. And my son had to go take a little nature walk, if you get my point, up to a ravine. And he walked quite a bit and did his thing. And then I was fine until he went. It's not his fault.
You're a sympathy nature walker.
And then, pretty much. So he gets back in the truck and I go, gosh darn it, and I walk out, basically not retracing his exact path, but you get me, same general area up this how roads crown, right, to let the water run off into the channels that usually exist on the side, right, where they usher the water away into whatever they have, tributary, sewer, etc. And so, picture this: you're walking up. You can see as you're walking out, right, away from the road. You crawl down, not crawl, but cautiously step down this ravine where that drainage ditch is, and then you have to make this educated jump, right, to leap over that water area, or you're just gonna have really gross feet. Um, Roadkill or anything else sitting down there is gonna get you too. Snakes. So I did that, did my business in the brush, and came back, and you're walking down this hill, and the whole thing was bathed in headlights. I mean, I couldn't see anything. Far different than kind of where I was originally, like the genesis of this walk, right, where I could see, and the lights were helping me. Coming back, I mean, all the lights were right in my face. Um, and TLDR, right? Too long didn't read. I misjudged that ravine, and I cratered hard onto this, felt like concrete cement. Rang my bell pretty bad. I think I had like a small concussion. And I was actually in really, really good shape. I was working out and taking care of my body and doing circuit training at a local gym. And I bring that up because several weeks later, we were doing like this circuit training that required military press. And I'm not a big guy stature wise, right? I'm not a power lifter or anything like that. No way. But I was throwing up some pretty good weight after doing, like a couple months of this training. And the trainer is like, checking everybody walking around. And I could not fully extend this military press on my right hand side. And it was, I mean, like everything in my brain was like, yeah, you can do this. But my body was failing, like as if somebody had sucked all the energy out of my arm. And I knew something was really wrong. Because I tried again, and the trainer was kind of spotting me with this military press exercise. My left side was handling it no problem, and I'm right hand dominant, and you would imagine my right side to be stronger. And I just remember, with all my effort, the grunting, the cussing, swearing, I just could not complete this military press. Several days later, I wake up at like 1 or 2 in the morning. I woke my wife up. I was sweating the amount of pain I was going through. Like breathing. I mean, like I have a son, right? So I know what it looks like to hear a mother in labor. And man, I was breathing like I was in labor. Like the pain was that bad. I woke her up and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm in absolute mind-numbing pain. I think we need to go to a hospital. And what we ended up doing, calling around, they said, don't do that. You're better off just waiting for your local orthopedic to open up, where they can do some x-rays and get you some narcotics to deal with this pain so they can figure out what's going on. Long story really short, I had basically ruptured 3 discs in my neck.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. Which led me down this multiple month journey of learning about neck fusions in your neck and the loss of movement and all that stuff. And I honestly, I don't talk about a religion. I do believe in God, but I mean, this kind of fell in my lap. My sister, who I give all the credit to the world in this, I went to this one spine place. I won't name names. And the guy was like, came in wearing a full on like rubber smock, a la like Hostel movies, right? If you've ever watched those horror movies. And he was ready to go. He's like, let's sign you up. Let's get this fused, and that way you're done. And mind you, I was on like a whole CVS of just awful narcotics. Not fun, guys and gals. Like, it was just, you felt like garbage. Your body's exuding sweat. You're constantly sweating because of the pain. It didn't really do much to mask it all. Long story short, there was this new technique to deal with discs called ACDR. So it stands for anterior cervical disc replacement. They're not fusing your discs. but they're putting a device in line where your disc material would be. And so for those medical folks out there, the disc materials, like what my spine doctor that did do the work, who I will totally give a shout out to, because really saved my life in a way. Dr. Good at Virginia Spine Institute, shout out to him and that whole staff out there. God forbid anybody on the podcast has any kind of back problem. You'd be hard pressed to find a better spine surgeon or spine practice in general. Just fantastic folks. But this journey took me through talking to a guy who had the same procedure done, except I think he had 2 discs done, and it was many years ago, before the FDA had approved this kind of surgery. He had to fly out to Germany in Berlin. His accident was related to carrying bundles of wood, and he heard 3 loud claps or 2 loud claps. I forget how many he heard. And the next night he was doubled over in pain. He couldn't move. I mean, he's literally paralyzed on the floor because any kind of movement would subject him to a lot of pain. And he had to be flown out to Germany, where they were doing this ACDR capability out there. And he's a school principal out in California, and I found him through Facebook because he was one of the first people to have this surgery done outside of the States. And I think I'm one of a very few amount of people that have 3 contiguous ACDR discs in my neck. And it's weird to even say it out loud, because I don't feel like I have anything in my spine. But I know I do. I have, under x-ray, you can see the titanium sprayed peak components in there. And it's kind of wild to know it's allowing me to do the simple things, to turn my head left and right, to look for lane changes. And just sounds so silly just to take that thing for granted that we all leverage every day. And to know that I can do that now, it's just fantastic.
So let's talk about your project here, because we were talking data and stuff.
Yeah, we were getting our nerd on, and I took us down this whole medical journey. Apologies, listeners. I squirrel from time to time.
That's fair. We all do it. It's a podcast.
I hope everybody else does. So when I was putting together this project, right, getting this S2000 to be more track worthy and capable, I wanted to make sure that I took a lot of time to think about certain things. Who to take the car to for the K-swap, Andy with ASM, right? Who kind of get it caged with, and through a mutual friend of mine who's in the Miata community, Piper Motorsport, who I heard even back when I first met Eric, right? Piper Motorsport, you'd see stickers in people's cages. Hey, who'd you get your cage done? Piper Motorsport.
If you're near DC, he's the first person you go to. Period.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch. Shout out to Mitch. The guy's just the salt of the earth. Not even. Just the patience he had to listen about my questions and to answer them. I mean, the guy. There's no doubt. I mean, he has the history and the legacy between, when he was racing for Mazda, I believe he was doing that. And now he's doing, I think, scrambling with dirt bikes and stuff like that. But just a hell of a guy, right? I can't say enough how warm he was, and just to hear my questions. And there was never this disparaging look like, oh, you're a newbie, you're asking this or that. It was like, I really lucked out in having him local to talk to. And I talked to him about the cage and what other S2000 folks were doing and what he suggested. And, we started talking about telemetry, and he's like, what are you trying to do? I said, I'm with NASA. I'm going to work through HPDE. And, I made HPDE 3. I don't know if I told you that, Con, but I graduated into 3. So at VIR in mid-October, I'll be in DE3 trim out there.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a while, but I'm really tickled to see how this works in DE3 with all the intermix of other cars out there, and hopefully I don't piss off the folks in three like, oh god, we got a
No,
newbie
it's
in
fine.
here. I'm gonna learn. I'm
There's
gonna
a new
quickly learn.
there's a new person there every day, and I promise you'll be happy you got your neck fixed because you're gonna have your head on a swivel.
Oh, I bet for sure. And so it brings me into like the project, right? Like, okay, I mentioned 3 decade IT professional. I my day job, I work for Amazon Web Services as a basically a consultant of sorts, if you want to call it that. Um, and I basically have made uh, a lifestyle out of open source technology. For those that are like, what did he just say? I don't know what open source is. So if you hear things like Red Hat Linux or even some versions of Solaris, it's kind of the anti-particle to that of say Windows, right? You go out and buy Windows, you have to get a license, you have to go do all those things, and it's copyrighted material, right? Open source technology is literally copy left. That is a terminology that you can use when you say open source technology, and the loose requirements, or I would say the general requirements, are if something is open source, is that you give it away freely, and that if anybody contributes to it in a way to make it better or add features or bug fixes or things of that nature, that they are free to make those modifications uh, in the auspices that they also freely give it back out to the world. Um, and knowing that I was very fortunate to learn from my friends in high school Linux at an early age, stumbling through, right? I was not very proficient. There was a lot of mistakes um, in learning Linux, but then really getting a hold of it, I became pretty masterful at it. And I really appreciated the mantra that open source provided. And so I thought about, what would be a great way to mix my passion of motorsports and also my technical back end of just tech in general, working for AWS and having grown up in the era of the internet. And I ran into a company that some of you might know called Racebox. And they came out with this device called a Racebox Micro. I'm holding one in my hand, and Con can see it. This thing is tiny. It is, what would you say? Remember Micro Machines? Like, remember
Yeah,
those little Matchbox cars that were super small? I mean, this thing is
it's about the size of my
just
It's a
a
little bigger
shade.
than my GoPro Hero.
Yeah. What is that? A
Yeah,
session you got
Hero
there?
Session.
Yeah, here's session. So it's more rectangular than square than the session is. And I looked at the stats on this thing, and it can pull down 3-dimensional telemetry data. It's super small, a really tight form factor, 25 hertz, I think, so 25 times a second. GPS, GLONASS. There's a whole list of specs you can find on their website, and so I thought, let me just reach out to them. Right, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I said, hey, I'd like to partner up with you guys on this. Let's talk. And so I talked to them about my company and what I'm aiming to do. I said, we would love to partner with you. We'll send you out some of our product at a discounted rate so you can learn the device, understand its capabilities, and we'll also give you a discount code for other folks that um, you know want to buy this device for their own telemetry, and you'll get a little scratch off of that discount to help with your business. What do you think? And I said, sure, let's do it. And I don't know if I want to say the coupon code now or maybe hold it to the end. I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe I'll anger people, but I'll give it out right
Yeah,
now
go
if that's
for it.
okay, Con.
Don't bury the lead.
So, yeah, right. If you go to racebox.pro, which is their website, and you use the coupon code OS, so open source, right? OSMS 15 altogether, OSMS, so Oscar Sierra, Mary Sierra 15. You'll get 15% on all of their products, not just the Racebox Micro. So if you're like, hey, the DIY thing, the do-it-yourself thing's kind of cool, but I just want an easier kind of way about it, you can go buy one of their products and get telemetry um, with certain caveats, right? Every device has its own specs that it can pull down telemetry wise. So enjoy that. Get 15% off. I think a Racebox Micro with that discount code brings the price down to, I want to say like $89. The coupon code doesn't work on Amazon.com. I think they are working on it, so feel free to give it a try. If it works, great. If it doesn't, just order it from their website. They'll get it out to you. And so that's one part. So I have that partnership. I'm going to put that device down. And I'm holding up a different device for the listeners. You can't see it, obviously, but it looks like like a little baby. What would you like? A really small cell phone.
Right.
You say this looks like? Right, it looks like a miniature, like a toy tablet is the best way. It's about the size of a playing card. About, I don't know, maybe a pen laying down, like a pen's thickness, right? So it's like a playing card, rectangular shape with about the thickness of a pen, with an LCD screen. And what I'm doing is, I want to build a device, and I can't do it myself. I can only do so much, and then there's certain skills I just don't have. But I know with the technology, the hardware that we have in the market today, that there really isn't. It's the barrier of entry is just getting the software and the hardware to work together in a seamless fashion, where you could replicate a Smarty Cam, or even heck, like the Racebox Micro that I use in the S2000. I mean, I use my phone to select exactly like what you said on the Garmin Catalyst. Hey, the GPS gets connected via Bluetooth, the Racebox Micro to my phone. I open up the Racebox app. It says, hey, I think you're at Summit. What race course are you doing? I tell it, and it says, cool, kind of like the Garmin Catalyst. It says, all right, well, once you start rolling, I'll start recording. I record my GoPro, and I sync up the GoPro to the Racebox camera too, because it can record as well while doing the telemetry. The cool part is all of that telemetry, once you're back in the paddock, uses your phone's internet connection and syncs it to Racebox's cloud. Now you might be thinking, oh geez, here we go again. I'm going to go buy cloud bits and bytes and get more iCloud data a la Apple or even Google and all that stuff. No, it's free. I mean, if you think about the size of telemetry files, we're not talking about gigabytes, folks. We're talking about maybe a meg or two. I mean, I'd have to pull it down and go look, but we're not talking about anything substantial, especially when you start talking about, we're in 2025 where gigabytes can be had for pennies on the dollar.
That's the
right?
Video overlay that bloats your telemetry when you're pulling it off your Garmin or your AIM and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And so, it's nice to sit in the paddock, look at my laps. You can pull down I think there's 2 or 3 different telemetry files. I should know this, but it's on Racebox's site. They're the 3 main types of telemetry files you can get. And then I use HP tuners, right, to overlay the telemetry data with the video. I think they just now opened up, I think, was it Race Chrono? You can use Racebox with Race Chrono and do the same thing there. So I might give that a shot. And even if you go to my website, www.osms.io, you'll see right on the init of the load of the webpage, you'll see the Racebox telemetry with HP Tuner overlay on that video where I'm going up, I think, the uphill S's of VIR.
into Oak Tree and exiting Oak Tree, I think.
Yep. And so I love what you say about the Garmin. I can appreciate your love for the device. I love my Garmin devices, but I really feel like, if I'm at Garmin, I know that there's very little competition out there. Racebox being a competitor, I think in some way, shape, or form is helpful. And I did listen to the prior guests you had on your podcast from Fire Labs. I think it's great. I love hearing what they're doing with their device and the cellular connectivity where it's just done. You don't have to worry about it. Um, and I'm going to pull on that thread. A lot of people see the videos, and Con, you could even probably open this up too, or maybe if you have already. It's a lot of work. You push the car around the track, you get back, it's cool off, drink as much water as you can stomach because you're just leaching sweat the whole day. At least I was at Summit. And then you're checking your tires, you're checking for leaks, you're making sure everything's okay. And then right when you get that one breath in the paddock, you look at your watch, you're like, holy crap, I've only got like, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes maybe. And then all that water has to go somewhere. So then you're finding the bathroom, hustling it back to the paddock, right? Like it's a lot of, NASA and I know other associations they have to run a pretty tight ship scheduling wise. So laziness when it pertains to getting this telemetry out and available to you is a big deal, right? It certainly helps in post when you're looking at your braking zones and trying to get down to. I think if my memory serves, I might cheat and pull up the website. I think I got down to like 129, or did I even get into 128? I'm trying to think. At Summit.
So the trick really is when you leave the world of HPDE and you live in the world of time trial, which they have shorter sessions and generally don't use their entire session. At least when they start to get to the pointy end. And then the racers. Sunday we have two races. And then Saturday we're only on track 3 times. Practice, qualifying, and afternoon race. So we have more time as racers, but you HPDE guys, which I think is what the Garmin is really aimed for, because it has a voice coach to tell you, remind you what you did. It tells you, hey, go a little faster in this corner from last lap, things like that, right? My race car, there's no way you hear that. I molded custom earbuds. I paid like $300 to get custom molded earbuds put in and plugged it in. Still can't hear it.
I'll tell you, if I can share a like-minded story. I think to say that I have a Facebook marketplace problem, I think I'm not alone, because I think a lot of people, right? I really honestly should probably block any like 90s Honda, Mazda. I mean, any kind of Japanese or even American muscle. I don't hate on those cars either. But just like I should set up some kind of DNS rule or content filter because, man, do I get an itch when I see something that I'm like, whew, I'm
going to put some parental controls on your marketplace time.
Firewall, right? Exactly. It just so happened on marketplace, I was actually, I talked to Andy quite a bit, and I don't want this to sound like I'm really pushing his stuff, but like, between Mitch, Piper Motorsport, just salt of the earth. I could call him up tomorrow and he'll probably let me bend his ear for like 30 minutes, right? Unless he's looking at
or more, even if he is.
Andy's
Mitch is a glutton for that. He loves talking.
But he loves talking, and it's a great kind of exchange. And heck, even when I reach out to Andy on Instagram or Facebook, I mean, talk about just, I'm going to sound cheesy here, but I don't know if he looks at me like a customer. Like, it's just like, hey, how's the car doing? Okay, what are you trying to do? Let us know if we can help out with anything. Just really down to earth and willing to bend an ear too about what I might be experiencing with the car and maybe some tips and tricks. But yeah, like it's just wild to think about this. I even talked to Mitch about this idea, and he told me that he knew somebody was trying to do it with motorcycles, and they use the Racebox Micro and scrambling and other motorsport. And I just thought, I've set up surveillance systems using Raspberry Pis, which is just a really kind of small form factor compute for those folks out there. Like, what, he's using pastry for surveillance? What the hell? No, it's a small compute box, right? And you can get webcams and power these things with, batteries, and you can
Sol-
really get some pretty
solar
snazzy.
panel solar
What's that?
panel powered
Yeah,
Raspberry Pi Bitcoin miners.
totally. And I know there's an opportunity here to provide some performance. Anyways, I got off track. I was talking about Facebook Marketplace. So, anyways, talking to Andy, I saw him starting to post with Facebook Meta, or rather the Meta Ray Bans. And so on the marketplace, I found a pair. This lady, I don't know if she knew that she wasn't pricing them right. Um, she had these things for like 190. No damage, generation one Ray Bans, the Meta Ray Bans, and I thought, for 190, I can get that kind of unique perspective where the GoPro is stationary, right? Bolted
Mm-hmm.
to your car. Seeing, Andy rock a pair of those in some of his videos, I was like, hey, I got some scratch, I've got some money to throw at this. I went and picked them up and thought, hey, I'll take them to Summit and record a couple. And I'm going to do some interesting overlays where I have the GoPro and the telemetry from the race box humming along, and where I did take those segments, because I think it's limited to 3-minute video captures. I'm going to try and overlay that in a unique way where you can still see the GoPro, but then you can see me looking around. It's going to be interesting to synchronize the timing there. I think I can do it.
Well,
But I
I'll
just
tell
thought,
you, I'll tell you,
what's that?
coaches love to see your view. So like either helmet
Mm,
mounted or the eyeglass stuff, they love to see that because they want to see
yeah.
where you're looking when you're looking. So
Yeah, and I might even, after the podcast, I'll throw you a video, because I wonder if you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm checking my mirrors. I'm looking at the flag station, and what's wild is, I'm not telling myself to do that, right? Like, I'm seeking that information so I can continue to push the car and know that, hey, at least from a safety paradigm, there isn't a wreck, or there isn't a yellow or a emergency vehicle, or whatever. Um, and I think also looking out onto the horizon is something that, Eric taught me, and James. It's easy to look at just the first apex, but you really should be thinking and looking through that turn to where you're going, because where your eyes are where the car is going to go. I'm sure that's in a Ross Bentley paragraph somewhere in his book, but you get my point, right? You can't just look over the hood of the car and stare down the next apex. You got to look through
right,
that turn.
right. I I think that riding motorcycles on the street, you can't lock into anything, right?
Thousand
So
percent.
you
Yeah.
learn to get your head on a swivel and you're used to looking
Mm-hmm.
around. I drive my car on the street similarly to how I rode my motorcycle, slightly faster than everybody around me, and I'm always in my mirrors, right? And I'm looking for the safe
Yep.
spot in traffic. But you can take that kind of
Mm-hmm.
discipline and apply it to the track and go, what applies here? I need to know what's behind me. I
Mm-hmm.
need to know the signals from the flaggers, and then I need to look through the corner as far as possible. And it's actually, in my opinion, easier than driving around the beltway on a motorcycle. So
Yeah, I agree, and I'd even, not to be a one-upper, because that's just not me. I often feel like everybody should learn to ride a motorcycle, because you really should have your head in a swivel. You can see the angle of attack of a car's tire and be like, oh, they're going to
yep.
change lanes and they're not signaling, right? Stuff like that. Those little tells. I think, and you could probably validate, and other folks could too, that probably helps when you're wheel to wheel racing. You can see that dip in the angle of the tire. You can see the car lurch forward or not, and you're actually, it's high calculus math that we're doing as we're racing and HPDing, and pushing these cars to their limits. Um, it's quite interesting to me that how what you just mentioned about motorcycle riding, it makes you just a better driver, I think.
Yeah, I believe it. So I actually have some
Yeah.
questions. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, about
for it.
the race box. Okay. So
Yeah.
I was on the website, I'm looking, and they have multiple like GPS hertz collection rates, right? I think 10 and 25.
Yep.
And that
Correct.
limits your amount of capture time, right? So is the micro expandable?
From a memory
Yeah.
paradigm,
Okay.
no. There's no extra gigabytes or gigabits from a storage that you can slap on there. I will tell you though, I think it's, what is it, 2 hours of data at a capture rate of 25
Yeah.
hertz. So if you change that setting in a sampling, you get 2 hours, and then at 10 hertz, you get a little over 5 hours. And if I'm being honest with y'all, I have no reason to go beyond 10 hertz at this point. I would love to hear from people like saying, "Hey, you need to get 25 hertz because that sampling rate's going to get you a lot more intel." I mean, 10 times a second is pretty crazy right there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, because I'm looking at your website. It says the 25 hertz gets you 4-inch variance. That's pretty tight, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the nice thing, I have it wired in. I actually have a video on YouTube. So if you're like, hey, I want to replicate what Dan does, I talk about how I add in a buck converter. That's basically like a power conditioner. I don't think you need to have it, but I did it because Racebox, it's with that discount code, it's $90. Well, I don't want to make a silly mistake and then shred $90, right? So I use a buck booster to condition the power so that if there's any kind of spike, let's say I'm getting a jump from maybe a bad battery situation and dirty power comes in, it'll never touch the race box. So if you're wondering how I have it wired, you can go to my website and see how I install it. It's very, very cheap components to use. I shouldn't say cheap, inexpensive components you can find on Amazon.com to buy. And I think even the videos have links to the tools I use.
Yeah, fiscally responsible. Yeah,
there you go. I like that. Fiscally.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I just sometimes I need fancy stuff too. So,
hey, I get it. I mean, I know somebody might be saying he's trying to be fiscally responsible buying a Racebox Micro, but then the guy goes and buys a pair of Ray-Ban Metas Gen 1s for $190. Okay, sure, but I didn't pay what is it, the going rate, like $299 I think, or $280. So I was a little frugal there, but I really wanted to see what it looked like, and it's wild. I'll send you the video, Colin, after this. You can see the 3-minute clips. There's several of them, but I'll send you one. It's kind of cool to see that. And I even think Insta360 has this little pebble looking device you can tuck in to your helmet, where it just sits right off to the side of your head, basically. It's super small. I have no idea what the battery life is on that, or if there's a wire going to some
I'm
power
not putting
bank,
anything in my helmet.
But
not doing
oh
it.
yeah, do you have a story there?
Well, so let's.
There's a story.
It's not really a story. Okay, I'm short, so I know guys who complain about debris coming in the car, right? So they're visor down people.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a midget, basically. I'm 5'5" on a good day. As I age, I'm closer to 5'4". So I'm pretty close to the steering wheel, which puts the wind. Well, in my car, it doesn't go in the car, but the wind behind me, the debris goes behind me.
Sure.
So I'm visor up, right? Well, I've had body contact before. I've been bumped. I've been off track. I used to drive with sunglasses in my vehicle, in the race car, in my helmet. I don't do that anymore. And if I were to need it or want it, I would go to a visor. Okay. Because I went off track at South Bend at VIR. Okay. And almost hit the wall. I didn't hit the wall, but just the ride through the grass, the glasses were almost out of my helmet. And my helmet, you have to pry off my head. So I'm not putting that in there. I don't care how they mount it, because I got bumped this weekend at Summit Point in turn 1, right? Well, I don't need that loose in my helmet for the rest of the race or at my feet, because I've also had, of all things, the K Pro wire got underneath my gas pedal, down near the bottom, not at the top, and I was only getting like 70% throttle because it was, and I couldn't get it out, right? It's way under the dash. It wouldn't get out of there. So for one race, I had 70% throttle, and that's all I had. So I don't need loose things, potential loose things, not in my helmet, not in my floorboard. I'll leave that if it's secured to my helmet on the outside. Okay. But it does. I've seen that. I've seen what you're talking about. It doesn't look that secure. They just sort of like, it's like a magnet that's holding it in. Yeah. So I'll pass on.
And that kind of opens. No, I appreciate that. I get that fully. I mean, my hearing is terrible. My eyesight's, knock on wood, pretty darn good. And so I protect my eyes quite a bit.
You're not doing a hobby that's going to help your hearing. I'll tell you that right now.
No, not at all. And honestly, I wonder if people are wearing like ballistics, foamies in your ears. I mean, some of the Honda Challenge Integras.
Yeah, we're 33 decibel foam earplugs, and it's still obnoxious when there's 4 or 5 of us duking it out and the harmonics hit, it gets into your soul. Like you feel it deep in your chest. It's rough. Forget your ears.
I could feel it. I could feel it in my paddock. I mean, I even walked to that tower right as you enter the grid, right at Summit. I mean, shoot, I was paddocked not that far away from you. But yeah, some of those Integras are just absolutely screaming down the straight. I was like, I need some ears, man, like right now.
They have dumps. It goes header, like 3 foot of pipe, and a 90-degree turn down. That's it.
Jeez.
The rule says behind the driver. Wild. That's it. So.
Jeez. Yeah. It's funny. We talked about stuff in the helmet, and a lot of people might be thinking, okay, race box telemetry, this device he's working on. I mentioned Naziok, S2KI, and I know those forums are still alive and well, but I always, and I'm sure this happens to you maybe, where you log onto a forum and the image you're trying to load is basically dead. It's gone, and the photo bucket account has been thrown away. And the guts of that post and the DIY or hey, check out what I did here, it's just eradicated. And I thought about maybe there's a nice harmony between like a Discord channel and a forum, or maybe there's a hybrid technology out there I just haven't found yet that makes it a little bit easier to index and find, right? Like when I go on the Facebook groups for S2K track, I mean, great bunch of guys and folks there. But it really sucks when you're trying to find that thread, or you come in several days, maybe you're on vacation, or you just haven't gotten around to your phone to pulling up that thread, and you're just scrolling. I mean, literally doom scrolling through this chat, trying to say like, what happened, the link to this or that. And maybe it's my older age. I really miss when you can go to a forum, have all the debates, all the stickies, right? All the things that, oh my God, you did that, and it really, it improved your performance. Oh, okay, we're gonna sticky that and make a DIY out of it. I mean, and also I'd be remiss in not giving a huge shout out to Rob Robinetti. For anybody who has an S2000, if you type Rob Robinetti his website is not going to win any design awards, and he would probably tell you to your face, yeah, it's not the most beautiful website, but the content, I mean, like, function over form. I mean, like, it has everything you need. I modeled my oil cooling setup from his DIY. Some of the other things I've done in my car, modeled it off of his very, and I don't mean this negatively, very rudimentary but very solid website that just had everything I needed.
I mean,
and so
we've talked on this podcast that the forums, they're dying, and they've tried to solve that photo issue. So this isn't out there, but if you're on Honda Tech, which is a big Honda website, right? Or for me, k20a.org, both of them now let you host your pictures on the forum. So as long as the forum exists, those pictures will exist. So, and another key thing is if you name your photos, not image, 10,400, whatever, right? If you name it, what is in the picture, it will help draw Google searches to your image when they're looking for that stuff, right? Nobody can find this Facebook group post on whatever. It is. Yeah. Those are like the dime comics of print, right? You look at them and then they throw them away. The thesaurus, the encyclopedia of the internet is always the forum, but people just don't do it. But that's how in these Facebook groups you get the same question 5 times a day. Because people can't look.
And that's kind of that's going to be a component of my website. I haven't built it out yet, but I want. Let me back up a little bit. Some folks know about Cuba and the country, right, where we didn't have really good relations, right? I'm not going to go into that whole hailstorm of stuff, right? But I really admired what they did with what they had, right? I mean, you see photos of these cars that were well maintained, right? And it's a really like a testament to their ingenuity of keeping these things running with some good old know-how and sourcing parts. And I bring that up because, even, and I'm not speaking for Mitch when I say this, I think he would say this if asked, right? You get a brand new M4, let's say, with all the electrical doodads. You say, "Hey, Mitch, I want to put a cage in there." He might turn you away and say, it's just not feasible because there's too many sensors, there's too much electronics, and the liability for him to put a cage in such a high-tech vehicle is really challenging. And he when I said about the S2000, he goes, he knows where the wire looms are. He's done them so many times, it's not an issue. Miata, same thing. Porsche, the older Porsches, no issue. And why I bring that up is I really feel like maybe in a couple months, maybe a couple years time, people are really going to need to have that 3D print or that step file that I hear with the 3 Series, they leave those amber blinkers everywhere. They just keep falling off, right? I mean, and why not? I think I even saw in a post somebody 3D printing a replacement. Like, yeah, I have like 4 or 5 of them, and if one falls off, I just plug it and away I go. And
it's got to be one of the Spec 3 guys. I think they're always losing them.
Totally, it's definitely a Spec 3 guy. But you hear about Racebox and telemetry and open source. I really wanted this to be a place for people to share what they have done. Maybe part marketplace, part DIY, part kind of looking for a community of other builders to huddle on something and say, look, I've got this problem. Okay, what is it? It's a mechanical problem. Is it a tech problem? Like, what it is it? And be able to share some of those things in an open way. And I think the spirit of a lot of the forums, be they Naziak, S2KI, Honda Tech, K20, Miata, I mean, Miata forums in general, right? There's so many people that know these cars inside and out. But I feel like those forums, as you said, they're dying, and I hope they don't die. But we know hope is not a strategy. And I feel like there needs to be a place for not that the Fire Laps guys need any help marketing, but what if somebody wanted to take their kit and then combine it with something else that they wanted to build, like a Smarty Cam setup or something, right? That's DIY, or call it grassroots, if you will. That's really what I envision osms.io to become. Is over the winter, I'm going to have a forum portal built with membership, maybe a slow or low membership fee. And I won't say what some of the advertising costs when I started talking about marketing this Racebox partnership. Some of the advertising costs to even advertise in some of these forums, the margins of what I make on some of the proceeds of these Racebox sales, I'm not buying yachts, right? Like, I'm fully funding my project, my business, with my own cash. And I wanted to maybe provide a lower barrier of entry for that college student who's like really good with breadboarding and microelectronics, and they can build a really cool pedal box cam, or maybe a Raspberry Pi Hydra device where they have multiple cameras, and with the flick of a button they can rip these videos and get them into your bay station in the paddock that's got power to like a NAS, like a network attached storage, where you press a button, it's already uploading it so that you know that footage is there. And you can really customize some of these things. You're seeing it with home automation, right? People doing all kinds of things with blinds and lights, and I mean, technology has really opened so many doors to customize what you want out of it. It's quite wild what you can achieve, and I feel like the same thing is true of motorsports.
Yeah, my brother's a 3D printing nerd, so he's always on like printables and stuff. And I sort of see yours as more of like the printables, which is, for those that don't know, is like the 3D printing repository. And there's, everybody does versions and updates and all that stuff, but sort of that for motorsports, right? Like, here's a wiring diagram. Here's how you get that annoying airbag light to go off, right? Just something simple, right? I hate staring at my airbag light knowing there's no airbag, but I can't turn it off in my Flash Pro, right? So, you figure that out, you post it up, and then, it's like 8th gen Civic airbag light delete, and then you put that, right? I'm sure it's done. If I Googled that, I'm sure I could find it. But, other things race related, so.
For sure. Like one thing that I'm doing is, obviously there's no radio in the car now. It's pretty much track prepped. I did read the Honda Challenge rules that you have to have a dash. And so the dash is in there. It's flopped.
You're going to have to read those again. The rules. That? Yeah.
The rules? Oh, okay. Did they change them? Or, because I remember it saying like you had to have a dash for a certain class, but maybe I need to go back to that.
No more dashes are required.
No more dashes? Oh my God, I can gain so much more space. Holy smokes. S2000, folks, is tight. And while Khan's saying he's a midget, I am not. It is a tight fit. Even my check ride for DE3, the guy rides the Miatas. He gets in, he's like, this is really tight. I'm like, you're not going from like a Astro van to a, I mean, like, come on, man. He's like, it's still tight. I'm like, well, okay. And he wasn't a big lumbering dude either. So, but yeah, I think there's a lot more that the open source mentality that I'm trying to do for 3D printing, modeling a headlight, so you don't have to put your OEM headlights in there if you're trying to get your car ready. I mean, there's so many different angles to approach this, and I've even reached out to some guys on Facebook that do 3D printing. They do modeling. And I'm like, hey, I'll definitely part with some money to get like a 3D scan of that headlight you got. And the resounding answer I get back is like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, even if I gave you like the cost of what you scan, I mean, like, I just want a copy of the file, man.
Yeah,
And
they
nope.
make money. It's how
It's
they
like,
make money. So
right. And so, like, I think there's a sweet spot there where you can incentivize people to be a little bit more open. They can still make money. Um, but I think that also opens up a whole other, call it marketplace for those companies out there that they do business level scans of objects, and having like a place where, hey, this shop does really great blue light level scans of auto parts that maybe don't exist anymore. And that's kind of why I pulled in Cuba into that earlier conversation. I'm sure maybe now they're using that kind of thing, or maybe they were sourcing parts, but I think there's going to come a place where it's like, yeah, they don't make that anymore. You're going to have to go find a mold. You're going to go find somebody to cast it and go make it, especially for like in the E30s. I mean, I don't know if they have challenges sourcing
not
parts. I
yet,
don't
but us
know, but
Honda guys, the golden era stuff is hard to come by these days.
yeah, and I think there's got to be a way to answer that call, because these cars, I mean, they're just, there's something else, right? I mean, yeah, the newer high tech cars are still great. Don't get me wrong, but I think for folks in this era of, or rather generations of cars, and heck, even younger kids that really idolize these 90s, 80s, Japanese make, model, all that, they really love these cars, and they're just timeless. Um, that's really all I can say about it, especially cars like the S2000, the Miata. I mean, EK, all the Civics. I mean, they were just really unique for their time and their build. Um, Nothing wrong with the new modern Civics or Type R's. I mean, good grief, those are beautiful cars too. Just a different era, different time, different
I
approach.
still think those cars need to be on the open source because there's more problems to solve. The older cars, the problem is getting the parts. In the newer cars, it's solving the riddle. The established vehicles, it doesn't matter. Miata, Integra, Fox Body Mustang. I mean, everybody knows the special sauce to make them turn, right? But the newer cars, that's where the sharing is really going to need to be, in my opinion, to help save folks money.
Sure.
Especially, you mentioned the Type R. Those things, they're heat magnets. All that turbo does is cook. So,
yeah, and like that's one thing I was thinking about, and I know there are some folks out there that have their own 3D printers, and they've modeled like rear brake ducts, because on OEM S2000s, the solid rotor right on the rear, and that, you want to talk about a heat magnet. While not as bad as a magnet for heat like a turbo is, but that's going to be probably my next, call it fiscally responsible, I think is what you said. Modification is, fabbing up my 3D printer over here, and maybe routing some kind of mold to build another rear brake duct. I know there's other ones out there, but maybe I can. I think even G37s, G35s, they use this bow to bow the wind in. They don't use a tube.
That's a Porsche thing. Porsche started that. So
yeah. So I think there's different approaches I want to take, and I might fail a lot, but believe it or not, in IT, having not gone to college, I did do some college. I had a son at a very young age, at 22. I took a different, more challenged road in my career, and self-taught my compute, and how to write code, do DevOps and infrastructure as code. I self-taught all the things, and I think it's easy to say that, like, when you're self-teaching, especially when it comes to like fabbing up certain things, you are going to fail a ton. But eventually you're going to get to that really sweet spot where you do get the data and you're like, yeah, you cooled those brakes, that rotor down, and it's effective. It may not be perfect, but hey, it's better than melting bits and having to go through consumables
True.
faster.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, is there anything else we need to talk about? I want you to reiterate your Instagram. Actually, I don't think you said that yet. The website.
No, I didn't. Came on me. If you go to my website, which is www.osms, just like it sounds, so Oscar Sierra, Mary Sierra.io, you'll find all the things to get in touch with me. My Instagram is linked there. That is at Dan _ just like the website, osms.io. You can follow my reels, maybe some shenanigans and cooking, photos from Tony at our meets. But also, maybe bookmark it and come take a visit every now and then, because eventually that forum is going to be online, and who knows, maybe I'll get this companion device, that's what I'm calling it, put together where you won't need your cell phone, and maybe you can wire up some cameras and hit start record and not have to spend an arm and a leg. No offense, Smarty Cam, you make great stuff, but I know I like nerding out and seeing what I can do with my own hands. If you get my point.
Yeah. What's your YouTube? That's also on there. Should we?
YouTube's on the website, but let me pull it up here so I can read off the thing. Yeah, so youtube.com/@OSMS_IO. So you can watch my videos. You can see the Racebox micro install. Watch me go through VIR full. There's actually a really funny video where this guy had a Shelby Daytona barfing stuff onto the track, and I think he was sponsored by Radio Shack and Home Depot. I mean, the car just had bits and pieces falling off in the track. It was not good, and I think he damaged my windshield with like a flying windshield wiper that came loose. It was
He
awesome.
took cost effective too far.
Yeah, frugality to 11.
Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure, man. I can't wait to see you at the next event.
Yeah, are you going to be at VIR
Probably
in
not,
October?
but we'll see.
Shucks. Well, I'll be sure to reach out to see how you're doing, and I will try not to be a stranger. But thank you so much for having me on your podcast and letting me share my passion for motorsports and what I'm trying to do here in this small, tiny corner of Virginia. Trying to build something out of nothing.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.